We're on the air with our oral history microphone, and we're visiting today at 208 West 9th in Benton, the home of Mr. and Mrs. Travis Wilcox, Travis and May. We appreciate your letting me come over to talk with you today about the early history of Marshall County and your life in particular. Where were you born, Mr. Wilcox?
Gilbertsville, Kentucky.
Well, I believe that's in Marshall County.
That's Marshall County. Yeah.
I had a great friend from Gilbertsville. He played basketball there, was an All-American at Iowa after the war, went to Murray State. Yeah. You beat me to it, so you knew him.
Ever since he was a small child.
Yeah, Red was a great one. He's, I think, living in California now.
Anaheim, his brother told me. Anaheim, California.
Yes, sir. Now, you were born about when?
1910.
Yes, sir. Well, that makes you old enough for the program. What was your father's name?
William.
And your mother was?
Lula.
And what was her maiden name?
Sturgis.
Okay, Miss Sturgis then. So we got the Sturgises and the Wilcoxes mixed together here. There were a lot of Wilcoxes in Callaway. Were you kin to any of them?
No relation, not that I ever knew of.
You know where your father come from when he came here?
I understand Muhlenberg County.
Over in the West Kentucky coal fields.
That's right.
Well, let's see. Did you have any brothers and sisters?
I had only one own brother, and I had a bunch of half brothers and sisters and stepsisters. We was all mixed up family. Had a whole bunch of us.
You remember the grandparents on either side?
Just my grandmother on my mother's side. It's the only one I ever remember. She was in Mississippi.
Was she a Sturgis?
She was a Dunn before she married a Sturgis. Yes.
We got the Dunns and the Sturgises and the Wilcox. Now, that ought to make a pretty good product. All right, you were born at Gilbertsville, and I presume you went to a school there.
Gilbertsville school, grade school, and high school.
Now, a lot of the people I talked to have been out to little one-room country schools, but you were a city boy, really, weren't you?
I started out in the country school, Pinnacle.
Pinnacle? I don't believe I've heard that name.
Oh, Pinnacle University. High school is up on a high hill.
Yeah, well, every year I go with my wife to Oak Valley University reunion.
Yeah.
You've heard of the Blumenbergs, I guess.
I have.
Ezra used to carry mail around here.
He was our mail carrier right here in town.
Well, we have a lot of fun about the University of Oak Valley. And a lot of fine people went there, and we have a reunion. But now, I'm not sure I remember Pinnacle. About where was that?
Pinnacle is about 3 miles east of Gilbertsville on the Birmingham Road. And our farm was joining it. I was 3 miles out of Gilbertsville, east, which is old Birmingham Road.
Do you remember any of the teachers you may have had in elementary school?
Yes. Miss Genoa Fairback is one of them. She was my first one.
Oh, I remember her at the married Fred at the funeral home.
Right. And I had Miss Verna Petway.
I've heard that name too.
And I had John Gillihan, and I had Reba Gillihan, and Carl Darnell.
Well, Darnell's certainly a famous name in Marshall County, isn't it?
Right.
The first Baptist preacher that was ever here was Henry Clay Darnell out of Caldwell County, and they started Soldier Creek Baptist Church.
Right.
Not only is it the oldest church in Marshall County, it's the oldest church in the Jackson Purchase.
Probably.
So that takes it back to 1818, I believe it is.
Yeah.
I guess they have the oldest cemetery, too, in the area.
I imagine it's one of the oldest ones, right out there at Soldier Creek.
Other than Indian Mounds, of course, which those were unmarked. Well, So you had a Darnell as a teacher. Well, what did you like best about school?
Basketball.
Basketball?
Yeah.
No wonder Red Metcalf was such a good player.
I guess I did, but of course you had to do that or to get to play basketball, you know.
Mm-hmm. Well, some people like reading and spelling, some like arithmetic better. And
Well, I enjoyed it pretty good, but one I disliked was French in high school. I never could use that.
I had to pass a French reading exam in order to get a doctorate, but in high school, at the time I went to Hardin and was graduated there in the class of 40, they didn't teach a foreign language, so I never had an opportunity in high school, and I took some in college, Spanish, French, and Latin.
This was in last year that I was in high school, which is 31.
Mm-hmm.
We had to take a course in French, and boy, I just couldn't hardly muster that at all.
So you didn't go around saying "Parlez-vous français"? Well, I found that I learned a great deal of English out of the foreign language, more than I had ever known before. But what were some of the games you played besides basketball?
I played baseball.
Baseball, too?
We didn't have football down
Were
there.
you a first baseman or a
Shortstop.
shortstop? Real quick fellow then.
Well, I guess.
Uh-huh.
I don't know.
You were evidently a good infielder. They wouldn't put you at shortstop. And at bat, I presume you
Not too healthy.
got on every time, though.
No, not every time. No, but
Some, shortstops usually are not home run hitters.
no.
But Wee Willie Keeler, I remember, as one of the greats from the past, and someone asked him how he managed to get on so much, and you never hit a home run, but you're always on base. And he said, I hit them where they ain't.
Hit 'em more they ain't.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, I remember reading about Wee Willie Keeler.
Well, let's see now. I presume, was your dad a farmer?
Yes.
And so you grew up on the farm.
Grew up
You've
on the
met
farm.
tobacco worms.
Oh, you bet you.
You-
Suckers, tobacco worms, and all that.
Oh, those were pretty tough times in a way.
They were enjoyable times, though. I thought. I mean, I do now.
Mhm.
But back then, I didn't know any difference, I guess. So
Now, when you finished high school in 31, that was a rather grim economic time, actually.
I was during the Depression. You couldn't get a job at 50 cents a day. You couldn't do it. And I stayed around a while, and the CC camp come out.
Mhm.
I got in it. I was making $1 a day then.
Oh, my, that was good money at that time, wasn't it?
And
Did they
called-
give you your clothes?
Yeah. Those old clothes that used in World War One is left over. That's what they gave us.
Mhm.
And we went out to California, stayed out there 6 months, got discharged, and I come back. That was in 33. Still wasn't nothing doing. I joined the Marines.
Oh, you were looking for a few good men.
Yeah.
U.S.
And
Marine Corps.
I stayed 4 years.
Where did you go to train for that?
Paris Island, South
Carolina.
Mm-hmm. And when I got out, which is in 38, I got a job on Kentucky Dam. It started it.
TVA had begun
TVA.
the construction, and so you were fortunate to come back right at the correct time.
And got a job there. I stayed there 6 years.
Well, when did you meet your wife?
Oh, in 49, I guess it was, wasn't it? Yeah, when we moved to Benton.
Was she from this area?
Yeah. Yeah.
Did she go to Pinnacle?
No, I don't. She,
New Constitution.
New Constitution.
Out here by Pleasant Grove, just this side of Pleasant Grove Church.
Used to be a little school down there, you know. That's where she went to school.
Hilda Aaron was my teacher. Hilda Height, she is now.
Hilda Aaron Height. Well, great. New Constitution. There were about 52 schools in Marshall County at one time, I'm told.
Yeah.
One-room variety. Now we're down to, what, about 6 elementary and 3 junior highs and 1 high school.
I can remember when we had 8 high schools in Marshall County. I guess you can do.
Oh, yes. I remember that.
We had 8 of them.
I started the high school in the fall of 36. And there were still all 8 high schools here then. And let's see, I guess the last year Gilbertsville and Birmingham operated was about
39 or 38, 39, maybe 38 in the spring of 39.
I believe that's right. I think that's right anyway.
Then they all split up and went different direction. I know Joe Fox went over to Cotoy. Red Metcalf went to Calvert,
Calvert City.
I believe he did, yeah.
Everybody was terrified to death that both of those would go to the same place.
Yeah, that's right.
That is, the other schools in the county. They'd all like to have had them. But Red went to Calvert, and then Joe got completely out of the region.
Went to Cotoy and carried him to the state tournament.
Yeah.
Yes, he did.
Certainly did. He was a great one. You know, he made the NBA team of the half century.
Yeah, yes, he did.
And there's not many, of course, that did that well. Well, how did you happen to meet your wife?
Now, I don't remember. When we moved to Benton in 49, I just met her. I was going with her.
Was she, well, did you meet her at church or?
No, she. Yeah, they lived down here on the other street. No, she went to one church and I went to a Baptist church, you know. She went up to the other church and I was going to this one here on the hill. And just one of those things.
You just, through friends, you became acquainted.
Yeah.
Was it love at first sight?
I don't think so.
Do you have any children?
I have one daughter. By previous marriage.
Okay.
And she had a son by previous marriage.
Well, are there any grandchildren that
Yes.
you get to see them?
Oh, yeah. I got a granddaughter lives out here at Branchburg Church in that Sunshine Acres out there. She married Herman English's daughter. Son, Ray Pat. My daughter did. My granddaughter married a Smith. I'm about to get them tangled up now.
Okay, well, now we have your family established. I'd like to go back and talk a little bit more about your work. What did you start doing on Kentucky Dam? There were a lot of different jobs.
Laboring. I started out as labor. 47.5 cents an hour.
Glad to get it.
Yes. Then I got to set up the truck driver, which paid 85 cents. Then we got a raise up to $1.
$1 an hour. You were cleaning up at that time.
Then I stayed down, like I said, 6 years.
You know, I checked time there one summer. I was teaching school, and of course didn't have a job in the summertime, so I went down and I was honest with the fellow, and I told him I just wanted to work 3 months, and he said, well, we're needing a timekeeper. Labor was pretty scarce then. I'd been discharged from the Navy with a bad knee. And so they hired me, and I really enjoyed working that. I want to ask you if you ever drove one of those big 20-ton Sterling Vikings.
Yes.
I thought there would never been a truck on earth like that. You know, we were used to these 1.5-ton Ford
Yeah.
those days.
They were all diesels.
Hmm.
And
Did that thing have a chain drive?
chain drive, yes, sir. And
Well, you couldn't hold them.
you
They pulled
couldn't
inside.
stall one of them either.
I was down there one night, and you know, men will do most anything, and so these truck drivers, I don't know, you might have been the one. I hope if you were, you may cut my head off, but they got to arguing with the pilot of a little tugboat there that they used around. It's called the Mary Ann, if I remember right.
That's right. That's the name of it.
It had about a 500 horse diesel in it, and they used it to pull things around there, around that coffer dam and so on.
Yeah.
Well, this truck driver said, "Why, I'd pull you out of the water." Of course, the truck driver didn't know a whole lot about physics, I guess. He thought there wasn't anything that boat could pull against, but water doesn't compress. So they got a big old piece of
Choker.
wire rope or
Choker.
something or other.
Wire choker.
And they tied those two together. And you know, Mary Ann jerked that truck right in the water. Why, he did. If that pilot wanted to, he'd kill that
There are
truck.
two of those tugboats. One is called the Duck, and one is Joe Wheeler. And Joe Wheeler was a big, powerful
Mm-hmm.
tugboat.
Mary Ann wasn't that big, but
No.
she had a
They
pretty
use it for the lighter work, and this big Joe Wheeler.
Mm-hmm.
You see, all that rock, riprap rock, came from the rock quarry up the river about 6-7 miles.
Mm-hmm.
And we hauled every bit of that across the ferry. They had a big steel barge to riprap this wall. I mean, this earth field on this side.
Yeah, well, more than half of that dam is not concrete. It's was just earth. Some of it had a steel. They drove steel piling down the middle of it, didn't they?
Yeah, that is for the cofferdam part. But the rest of it, the dam is solid concrete. There's more concrete out of the water than you can see sticking out.
Yeah. Well, what I mean, though, there's about the dam, let's say, is 4,000 feet long in concrete, and then it runs about 8,600 altogether, and that's just an earth dam
That's right,
way out on this side.
Way on
And of
this
course,
side.
they covered it. They faced it with riprap,
to keep it from washing. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and part of that, though, they drove a
Sheet piling right
Yeah,
down the
sheet
middle.
piling right
and
down the
then
middle.
They started.
Mhm.
They started.
Now, the cofferdam, of course, was built out of that same stuff, but as it's
Yeah,
round,
yeah,
and they
circle.
filled it with,
Gravel pumped out of the river and
Mhm.
stuff like that.
you know, I'll tell you, a fella could get hot down in that hole. You remember, you'd go down in there, and there's nowhere it could get to you, seemed like.
I know, yes sir, I know. We hauled stuff out of there. That big old electric shovel, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Operator, I never will forget his name, Mr. Trueberger. And he could load those things, and he'd load them old big trucks. Of course, you had to go up a ramp coming out of there.
Yeah.
I never saw one of them stalled. I don't care how much he'd put on there.
Mm-hmm.
That rock and gravel and mud out of the bottom of that river, you see.
Mhm.
But he never stalled them. I don't
That
care.
old Sterling vacuum would move her, wouldn't
It
it?
wouldn't move it.
Of course, against Mary Ann, why, the wheels slipped. You didn't have enough
Oh yeah,
traction.
oh yeah, oh yeah. Yeah. And of course he is on a bank too, bound to bend.
Yeah,
Because the boat is sitting in the water.
yeah,
You got your bank there, you see.
he was on the bank. But he learned a little bit about, there's some power can be exerted through a hydraulic screw.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, you're talking about that. See, I stayed there 6 years. And work began to get a little slack down there, so I got a chance to get an iron workers card, getting iron workers.
Mm-hmm. That paid a lot more money.
Oh, yeah. And I
Were you you weren't afraid to get up and climb that stuff?
never was, huh? The first job I had is iron working. helping tear that railroad bridge down. We tore it down and moved it up in Tennessee and put it back up at Johnsonville. If you've ever been along there, that's the
Yes,
same.
sir.
That's the same road.
Big steam plant there.
I worked on it too.
Yeah.
That's the bridge that was here at Giversville.
Well, I didn't know that.
And those, see, it had
It had a drawbridge where
Right.
you could move it up across that
we scrapped that.
temporary lock, didn't it?
We scrapped that and built a new one up in Tennessee. It's a lift span.
Mm-hmm.
But those 300-foot spans, we moved, carried up there on barges. Just taking them off the piers down there and carried them up the river on barges.
Yeah.
And set them back. And built the new lift span up there. It was 400 foot long.
Of
And
course,
on,
that iron was good, so it,
oh yeah. And on each side they had what you call approach spans to get out to the bridge. One is 150 foot, another is 150 foot across the river.
Mhm.
Well, we cut the rivets out of it and then had to rebuild them back up there, you see. The reason we did that, you couldn't get the barges up on the banks there to get them, you know. We had to tear them down a piece at a time. So
I remember something concerning that lift span. We went to work one morning and they were making Navy ships down at Decatur, Alabama at a shipyard, and they'd bring them up. Of course, when they came through, they couldn't get under that bridge without raising the draw span.
yeah.
So that stopped a big coal train that morning. It had 150 cars of coal, and it was being pulled by 2,700 Lima, Baldwin, Hamilton steam locomotive.
27 and 2900s.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing.
10 drivers.
Yeah.
Well, a bunch of men standing around there said she'll never start on that grade. And it pulled pretty hard, but you know that old steam engine started her off. And
They must have been powerful. Those
Yeah.
things. Must have been powerful.
I enjoyed hearing that thing chuck.
Yeah, I did too. And I always liked to ride a train.
Yeah.
Oh, I'd rather ride a train than, I hate a bus, but trains I
You
used.
remember your first train ride?
Yeah, sure do.
Was the old NC in St. L out of Benton?
That was Illinois Central from Giversville, Paducah.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
That's the Illinois Central line went through there, you
Yeah.
know. That was my first train ride. And yes, sir, I really liked the train ride.
You never did go to Detroit and work.
I worked out at local, but I never worked there in town. I worked over at Flint, Michigan, which is out of the same local.
Mm-hmm.
But I never did work there in town. I didn't care for that town.
Oh.
Sure.
Well, you know, time slips away pretty fast. I wonder if you have any sort of interesting stories you could tell us about your days in the Marines, either your most embarrassing moment or the funniest joke you ever heard or something you pulled on. Did you ever pull anything on Peak? You said he is your Bible teacher.
No, we never did pull nothing on him. We could have, but we just didn't, you know.
Yeah.
So, but, no, I guess my experience in the Marines.
After you did your training, where did you go then?
Well, the first place I went to Fort Lauderdale, Florida, put us aboard ship.
Mhm.
They were having trouble down in Nicaragua. And we stood by down there for that same purpose. I found out later, you know. Of course, they didn't come out and tell you where it was, but we were standing by down there
Mhm.
for that Nicaragua trouble. And we stayed down there 8 months. Then we finally left there and went to Quantico, Virginia. And I didn't like that place, so I said, well, I'll just put in for a transfer. I knew they was getting up a detail to go to the West Coast. I went down to First Sergeant's office and I said, I'd like to get on that detail, go to West Coast. He said, it's full up. I said, I'll put your name down. Said, maybe something will happen. Well, the day before they got ready to sail, he sent his runner up there and told me to get my gear together. That one guy had to go to hospital. I was next in line, so I went to West Coast. Out to San Diego.
You like San Diego better than Quantico?
Yes, I did. And we went from there out on maneuvers, went to Midway Island, back to Honolulu, which I enjoyed.
Oh, that'd been a wonderful trip.
And come on back, and then I got transferred to Charleston, South Carolina, Navy Yard for guard duty. And I stayed there till I got discharged.
Well, those are wonderful stories. It's been a pleasure talking with you, Mr. Wilcox. I was glad to meet you and your wife, May, and to visit in your home, and thank you very much for letting me come.
Wow.
And we trust that maybe we'll do this again sometime.
Well, could be.
All right, this is Ray Mofield speaking on the Oral History broadcast. We return you now to our studios.